Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of, sorry, I need to clean my glasses here a little bit, to another episode of Cozy Collectibles, where once a week I get real comfortable in my pajamas because that is my default mode of existence, and I talk to you about one of the many cool things in my collection of cool things, mostly action figures, maybe a comic book, possibly a statue, or just something neat that I saw that I thought would be nice to have. So I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. That is one reason why I'm posting on Sunday instead of earlier in the week, is because I had a lot going on. Excuse me. My wife and I went out of town to one of our favorite, probably our favorite coffee shop now, um, Chapel of Bones up in Raleigh on Wednesday, and had a little bit of a date, and it was really nice to hang out there and drink some good coffee. And then, of course, Thursday was Thanksgiving. Friday, me and a couple of friends completely lost our minds, and we went from Goldsboro to Greenville to Wilmington back to Goldsboro for some Black Friday shopping. We were checking out some comic shops, Nostalgia Newsstand in Greenville, Memory Lane, both Memory Lane shops down in Wilmington. And then yesterday, spent some time with some friends of ours. So, this week's Cozy Collectible is a very popular character. I believe it was last year that his most recent movie came out, Deadpool and Wolverine, and then earlier this year and more recently he's been in comic book news for having a crossover with Batman, in a crossover that I thought would not make a whole lot of sense, but ended up working out pretty well. And that is Deadpool. And this is the newest Maximum Deadpool from Hasbro, part of their Marvel Legends Maximum line. Now, you're probably familiar with, the balance on this figure is horrible, so I'm making sure he doesn't fall over. You're probably familiar with Hasbro's Marvel Legends line. Well, the Marvel Legends line dates back to the mid to late 90s. I mean, it's been around for a while. And it was initially started by Toy Biz. And the idea was that these figures were a little bit bigger, a little bit more detailed sculpt, a little better painting, brighter, more vibrant, more variety of colors. They were basically supposed to be mini statues that you could pose, as opposed to being action figures that you play with. And they usually came with some really cool, get my coffee, really cool display options, stages you could set them on, backdrops, that kind of thing. And then when Hasbro took over the Marvel license, the Legends line is where they produced their more collector grade action figures. And I haven't seen the 3 3/4 inch figures in a while. I think they may have discontinued those. But for a while, the 3 3/4 inch figures were marketed as the action figures that you play with. And then the Legends were the action figures you collected, that you either kept in the package or you would take out the package and pose and display. But, those were the, action figures that, they were investments as opposed to being playthings that you would give to kids. And then last year, they started with Spider-Man. Hasbro launched a Maximum line off of Marvel Legends, and these figures have more and more varied articulation. Again, a little bit better sculpt, more vibrant colors. They have a Spider-Man, a Deadpool, and a Hulk. I really love the Hulk. It's on my Amazon wish list right now, in case any of you are looking for any not so last minute Christmas presents for me. I would love to have the figure so much. It's just I just can't justify spending the money on it right now. But I did get the Deadpool figure. I ordered it from Big Bad Toy Store about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now, I'm not sponsored by Big Bad Toy Store. Hold up, my wife's calling. Sorry, my wife had a question that apparently couldn't wait. And she didn't know I was doing a video. So, anyway, fair enough. This is the Deadpool from the Marvel Legends Maximum line. And first off, this figure has a lot of articulation. It articulates at the base of the neck, right here, and then where the neck connects to the shoulders. It has a little bit of limited articulation, so you can bend the head up or down. And then the wrists are articulated, they rotate, the elbows bend, the biceps rotate, the shoulders rotate. The chest is articulated. The waist is not. But you can still get that upper body movement from the chest articulation. As you can see, it bends up and down and also rotates. The hips articulated, sort of a ball joint, so they move in all directions. The thighs are articulated. You can see him twisting, the lower part of his leg here. The knees, of course, bend. The ankles and the toes are articulated. So quite a bit of articulation. Now I will say, and this is one of the gripes I have with the Marvel Legends figures and why I don't have that many of them, is because the articulation on these is really stiff. It takes a lot of effort to move these joints. Now, as with anything that bends or rotates or moves, the more you move it, the easier it gets. That plastic kind of wears down a little bit and gets a little less rigid. But, unless you actually take out your action figures and play with them, that means nothing to you. So, keep that in mind. If you really like posing your figures and want to put them in some dynamic poses, that is possible with this figure, but it's going to take some effort, and the balance on this figure is just absolutely terrible. I'm going to tilt my camera down a little bit so you can see, hopefully. Got him standing on my mouse pad, and as you can see, you got to get him in just the right pose for him to stand. So that's another thing to consider, is that I actually have this figure posed on my desk, and the least little bit of movement, if I just bump my knee on my desk, he tends to fall over, so I've got some stuff behind him to kind of help keep him supported. If you have action figure stand, like the circular stands that come with the McFarlane figures, or a lot of stores will sell their own kind of stands. I'm sure you can find some on Walmart. I know NECA for a while sold individual stands that work with their figures. The feet do have peg holes in them. So if you get action figure stands, that would definitely make posing and displaying this figure a lot easier. So I've got him in this kind of fighting pose with his katanas out. I wish the katanas were longer. They're a bit stubby. They don't look very dynamic. Usually Deadpool and in the movies and in the comics, you see he has these long, curved, more traditional, what you think of when you think of Japanese katanas. These are more ninja toes, which were swords that probably existed, but they probably weren't called ninja toes because there was no, specific sword that ninjas used. It's just some marketing term we came up for nerds who collect swords to be able to collect the ninja sword. But anyway, I do wish they were longer and more curvature to them. They would look a little more dynamic. They'd look a little more comic accurate. But, they work. They do the job. They give him something to hold in his hands and pose with. And, there are two of them. And they do fit into the sheaths or scabbards. These would technically be scabbards because they're solid. They're not cloth. They do fit into his back. So you see, that gives you another posing opportunity there. He comes with pistols. He's got 2 pistols that fit into the holsters on his right thigh and his right side of his waist there. And also I've got his little baby knife there in the scabbard on his ankle, or his lower calf. So, has a decent amount of accessories. I've got the box that he came in right here. So we're going to take this out and take a look at some of the accessories. So you see, he comes with an additional portrait with his mask pulled halfway up. He comes with, I believe this character is named Gorp. He was in the X-Men comics for a while. I'm not that familiar with him. I wasn't reading heavily at that point. He comes with a heavy machine gun, an M60 I believe it's supposed to be, with a bang effect right here, and a kind of a muzzle flash effect. He comes with several hands. That's on this other seem to be missing a hand. I'm curious as to where that got to. But he comes with several hands, including pointing hands, gun grip hands if you want to pose him with his pistols. These 2 hands right here have the trigger finger extended and have the rest of the fingers curled to where he can hold a pistol. He has closed fists. Has another kind of heavy gun right here. And then an assault rifle, stick of dynamite, a chimichanga, because he's Deadpool, he's got to have the chimichanga, and a couple of more muzzle flash effects right there. So, a decent amount of accessories for a decent amount of display and play options. Again, these figures are meant to be more for the collector, for the, person who wants to display their action figures and isn't going to be playing with them. You don't really buy these for kids, unless, of course, the kid is a collector. Or, you just don't mind if they rip open a really expensive, or moderately expensive action figure and play with it. The different accessories he comes with, and posing certainly is part of playing. So I would imagine this figure would be a lot of fun to play with if you engaged in play with your action figures. Which I do sometimes, not gonna lie. Sometimes when I want to reconnect to my childhood, I'll, have superhero fights or whatever. But that's not all that often. When I want to play something, I tend to play a video game. Okay, where I put the box. The age recommendation, according to the box on this action figure, is 14 plus. I think that's reasonable. Again, you don't really give this to a small kid, a young kid to play with. Here's the complete package. Got them in a few posing suggestions down the back. You don't give this to a young kid, a 6 or 7 year old, with the intention of them playing with it. You give this to somebody who's more interested in just posing and displaying, doing some action figure photography or stop motion videos, that kind of thing. So yes, this is the Hasbro Marvel Legends Maximum Deadpool. It's a fun figure, definitely, one that's cool to pose with, one that looks really good in photographs. The colors look good. One fault I have with a lot of Deadpool figures, why I don't own that many, despite genuinely loving the character. For a while, it was cool to hate on Deadpool, and Deadpool did get kind of overexposed for about 5 or 6 years there, around the late aughts, early tens. But Deadpool's always been a fun character. But the one reason why I don't own that many Deadpool figures is a lot of them are too bright. Especially the movie figures, especially the ones from Deadpool and Wolverine, I think are a bit too bright. Not that Deadpool's grimdark and serious character, at least once they introduced the zanier elements of him, like breaking the fourth wall and things like that. He hasn't been portrayed as that kind of character in a while. But, I don't like really bright red that just kind of clashes and kind of sticks out like a sore thumb when you have them displayed with some other figures that tend to have a darker color scheme. But I like the shade of red on this one. It's based on his current suit he's wearing in the comics, which looks good, looks kind of modern, but still looks very comic booky. So yes, Hasbro Legends Maximum Series Deadpool, now available at fine toy retailers and comic shops everywhere. So I got mine from Big Bad Toy Store. Again, not sponsored, but I'm interested. If you are interested, BBTS. So yes, I would recommend this figure. If you're a fan of Deadpool, you definitely need to pick it up. All right. So I'll be back next week with more cozy collectibles, and I hope you enjoy yourselves and the time you have outside of your obligations in the meantime. And Christmas is coming. I might do a big Christmas episode with my, Christmas haul that I get. Sometimes I get a ton of action figures for Christmas. There's a ton of action figures on my Amazon wish list. Maybe I'll get that Maximum Series Hulk. That would be awesome. I would have to fight my niece for it, but that would be awesome. So, alright, thank you for tuning in.